With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Yes, this is a hardcore grind interview. Oh, hold on. This is the Hardcore Grind interview with author and publisher Nika Michelle. Welcome.
Hey. Thank you, sweetie. How are you?
I'm doing good.
That's good. Good to hear your voice again.
Yes, ma'am. So listen, I always like to go out with the goal moment, right? When thought and execution comes together. A lot of times we're really mindful about how other people pour into each other and the things that they do for themselves. What was the goal moment when you decided to become an author?
I decided to become an author honestly, I started writing very young. So around 6 years old, I always wanted to be an author. So I would say my love for books, I stayed in the library. That was my favorite place as a child. So my sister and I, we would walk to the library, and there was a little drugstore across the street, a little pharmacy, and we would go over there, and they would make little orangeades. You know, this was back in the 90s, early 90s. They used to make little fresh orangeades, and they had the little small bags of potato chips for 25 cents, and we would go read our books and eat our snacks, and I just got lost in that world, and I was like, I want to be powerful like this, because I felt like authors could take me somewhere. And I was from a small town, and I did, go visit other places, but I felt like a book could take me somewhere without me actually leaving home. So I just fell in love with books so young. So I would say around 6 years old is when I knew I wanted to be an author.
I love it. Now, a black woman who can write is powerful. What does that power mean to you?
It means a lot, especially, like you said, the fact of being a black woman. Women alone were silenced at some point. We couldn't do certain things. We didn't have certain rights. So I feel like the power of being able to, give someone a lesson, even through fiction. I mean, even if you are an author who write your biography, or you've written some self-help, I feel like as a black woman, the power is in the word, in words. Like, we can, give so much. I know I heard growing up that if you wanted to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. And so I feel like as a black woman, I can change that with our people. I used to be an English teacher. I used to encourage literacy and try to teach. I taught people how to read when I was a little girl. So I think it's very important to open that door. It's the power of opening that door to get that knowledge, or even just the entertainment of a book. It's a different world. And I think once people tap into it, they realize just how powerful it is, because without authors and writers, we wouldn't have movies or TV shows. The strike, writers are very important and very, imperative to our arts. And I think that's the power that, as a black woman, I'm going to roar, and I'm going to teach my fellow black women something, even though people might say what I write is, they have names for it. I call it urban fiction, urban romance, just everyday life, things that we go through in our communities. And I think it's good because you have a lot of people who can relate to even a fiction story. And I've had people tell me before how the book might have changed them, or something in the book they saw in themselves they wanted to evolve, like the character, or just even a couple spicing up their relationship a little bit, that's powerful. Anything that you move people with words, to me, is a very powerful part of being an author.
I love it. I love it. Now, what do you admire the most about your pen?
What I admire the most about my pen? That is a good question because I've actually never even thought about that. I like the fact that I've never put myself inside a box. I like that I can be versatile with my pen. Like, I've tried to, not just do one thing. Like, I've done paranormal before. That was very challenging. I like to challenge my pen. I think that's the thing I admire the most, is that I always just compete with myself, and I always try to outdo myself every time. And, sometimes people might like one thing better than the other, but I kind of feel like I write something for every reader. I've done crime, thrillers, and I just don't like to do one thing. Like, I kind of want to do sci-fi. I loved Octavia Butler. I thought that was powerful. She's one of the first black female sci-fi authors, and I grew up reading her. My dad is an avid reader, so he put me on to Walter Mosley. So I've thought about mysteries. I used to love Nancy Drew. So I think I admire that about my pen, that I don't think I'm just one, faceted. I feel like I'm a multifaceted author. And before I put my pen down and I retire it, I want to have books in all types of genres. I don't want to be Nika Michelle, the urban fiction author, the urban romance author. I want to be Nika Michelle, the author. So, yeah.
You better talk that talk.
And screenwriter. One day I want to add that to the resume as well. So
I love it. Now, if you could change anything about the literary industry, what would it be?
I would actually change the fact that I feel like it's not enough platforms for us to, as black authors. I feel like it's a monopoly. That's the only problem I really have, is that I feel like we're not able to really have a lot of sources and resources to get our work out there. I feel like we need more than Amazon Kindle for ebooks. We don't really have the physical bookstores like that anymore. So it would be nice to kind of have not just a monopoly, but a broad amount of authors. Like, maybe the authors could come together. That's another thing too. I feel like in our industry, in this part of the literary industry, I can't say it as a whole, but I know with my peers, sometimes it's not enough getting together and bouncing off ideas and seeing if maybe we could come up with a platform for our people, not to segregate or discriminate or anything like that. We would probably carry, other genres as well and other authors from other races, but just to have something that, that's black-owned, that's a platform. I think that's one thing that's missing, us really getting out the reach that we need for our books and getting them out there to, broader audience. Or I want to have an app for us, for our books, like BET, something like that for our literature. I think that would be nice if we had more platforms across the board.
That I truly believe that as well. Now, you inspire so many people with your writing. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good because it takes me back, like I said, from myself reading. I learned a lot from books. I learned a lot. It was just always an adventure. And I've also read things that inspired me or helped push me. I could have been in a foul mood or, you're a reader. Like, I could have had a bad day at school, and the first thing I want to do is kick my shoes off and get lost in my book. And somewhere in that book, the character could have inspired me. And just to feel like, oh, wow, this book has helped me to move on from something that might have hurt my feelings. Kids bully you. You could have got an argument with one of your friends. So I always felt motivated and inspired. And then I read a lot of biographies like Michelle Obama, other powerful women. And the way I feel when they inspire me is what makes me feel really good about possibly doing that for someone else. It's actually a good feeling. It's a warm feeling. So I love that people are inspired. And even if it's not a reader, I like to inspire other authors. Maybe an author who wasn't, thinking they could do it. They will contact me and be like, I want to write a book, and I've really been wanting to do it, and, your book really motivated me. It's a lot of authors I know now who say that. And so that just makes me feel really good because one thing about me is I'm a cheerleader. I'm a motivator. I'm an inspirator. And so that feels really good. It makes me feel like I have a purpose, you know, like something that God put me here to do. So I feel great about that. I feel like it's a blessing.
I love it. Now let's talk about books. Let's talk about Forbidden Fruit book series.
Okay.
All right, so what's going on with the series, sis?
Okay, so you know that went wild. That was supposed to be one book. I actually didn't want to write anymore for a while. I went through a funk because I was in college when I wrote Forbidden Fruit. I was probably about 20 years old. I think it was my junior year. And I kind of went like 2 years without writing anything because I had been in a situation where me and my roommates, we had gotten robbed. So we were gone for the weekend. We came home. Our door was kicked in, and they took my computer. And back then I had a Macintosh not laptop. It was a desktop PC that my father had given me. And, you know, back then we had the floppy disk. And I left my floppy disk in the computer with everything that I had written since I was a little girl. I had like scrapbooks and notebooks, and I typed everything up, and I saved it. And my father always told me, make sure you take your floppy disk out of your computer. So you always have, and I didn't do it that one time. So when they took the computer, of course, they took everything that I had written. So it was kind of disheartening to feel like I've been writing since I was 6. So for 13 years of writing, I have nothing to show for it. So I said I wasn't going to write anymore. I was going to school for journalism, and I was like, okay, if I write, it'll be for a magazine or newspaper. I'm not putting all my blood, sweat, and tears into a book again and possibly lose it or something happens. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. So about a year or two went by, and I was finally like, you know what? I had a dream one night, and it was Diablo and Ayana, and it was crazy because it was like a couple fighting in the middle of the street, and the names popped in my head. I couldn't hear what they were saying. I just heard her say Diablo, and I heard him say Ayana. And honestly, I didn't take Spanish. I took French in school, in college. So I don't really know a lot of Spanish. I actually didn't know Diablo meant devil. I've heard the word, you know, of course. I've heard Diablo, but I just didn't know what it meant. And then I didn't know that Ayana meant blessed. And at the time, I just jumped up and wrote the names down. But the voice in the back of my mind was like, no, you're not writing anymore, right? But then another voice said, yes, you are. And I knew that was God because he was like, I'm putting this idea in your head, whether you like it or not. Oh, and by the way, the title of the book is Forbidden Fruit. And at the time, I'm not even tying all these things together, the devil, the blessed one, forbidden fruit. You know what a forbidden fruit is. I think in the Bible, I won't have that, you know, theological debate about what that means. But we know what it means in our society. That's a man's woman. So that's sacred to him. And he could be the type of man like Diablo who ran around and did whatever he wanted to do and felt like, if I take care of my woman, that's all I need to do. As long as she's taken care of, she should not feel the need to step out. And so I wanted it to be a story that was not just about the streets, but the love that a young girl feels for her first love. And he's out here doing this, and she's so attached to him, and the lack of family. And I think a lot of young black women could resonate with that because we grew up in the crack era, and a lot of the parents were, you know, strung out or not there, and a lot of girls were out in the streets and hooking up with older men. And even though Diablo isn't that much older than Ayana when the book starts, she's 14 and he's 19, so technically that's illegal. But, of course, he did not do anything at that point. He did that grooming thing where he waited for her to be old enough, and I didn't even know what grooming was as a little girl. I remember older guys, they weren't old like what I would call a pedophile or perverted, but if I'm 15 and you're 19, my mom's not going to let me date you. You're finished school, I'm in the 10th grade. Even though some time from now that will be okay, we're still not in the same place at that age. So I had a lot of guys would be like, ooh, just wait till you get 18. And I think that's just like the weirdest thing for an older guy to say. Don't say that. Just let her grow up. Don't say that. And so I noticed that happened a lot. And so I kind of wanted a book that would resonate with our era when we were growing up. It was different. We didn't have social media and we didn't have all of that. So I wanted to start the story out that way. I didn't realize it was going to turn into this long family legacy story because it was just one book. I didn't plan a part two. So, of course, went to the part two because you know how the book ended, and the readers didn't want that ending. So I was like, okay, well, you don't dictate what the readers, dictate what you write by the readers, but writing, being an author is also my career, my employment. So if something's on fire, you take advantage of that. So I ran with it. I'm like, okay, well, part two. Of course, after part two, they want a trilogy. So the plan was a trilogy. So when I was with my first publisher, I did the first two. And by the time I left that publisher, I was working on part three. And then I ended up signing with Leo. And he had literally those 3 books at once. And then I had Black Butterfly, like 2 of them. So we pushed all those books out at one time. So after part 3, I was like, okay, what now? So I figured, okay, let's start spinning it off. And that's when I did the Love in the A series. And then I did the Reunion. And then after that, the readers still wanted more, even though these characters are well into their 40s now. I went from 14s into 40s. And I ended up writing part 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's 7 parts to the Forbidden Fruit series. It's 4 parts to Love in the A, and it's 2 parts to the Reunion. And then I have another spinoff called My Forbidden Valentine. So Forbidden Fruit was like the biggest part of my career. It was the start, and it's like, I don't want to call it a classic because it sounds like I'm bragging a little bit, but every time the readers, it feels like I haven't read anything since Forbidden Fruit because that's the only book that ever comes up. I love Forbidden Fruit. I still love Diablo, and I was so confused I did not plan for the women to like him. I thought the women would like Elle and not him, but the women like Diablo. I was so shocked.
Now, there's a high cost for pursuing and pulling your vision together. What advice would you have for up-and-coming authors?
For up-and-coming authors, my advice would be, number 1, stop overthinking it. That'd be the number 1 thing that I feel like would hinder us from writing is the overthinking part. Where do I start? What do I do? My advice would be, your first book, outline. Once you get good at it, see, I've never been an outliner. I'm backwards. When I was young and sharp, I didn't have to outline. Now that I'm getting a little older, I will outline. So if you have an idea, the first thing you do is start writing. Just start writing. Don't overthink the book. Don't be sitting there like, oh, well, I don't know how to put it together. That's fine because your first draft is your rough draft. So you don't even have to really start out by writing the actual book. Start out by jotting down ideas. Come up with the characters first. One thing I like to do is get my characters organized. I like to do a character analysis. I would name all my characters, their traits, their age, what they look like, the physical attributes, because you want your characters to be multi-dimensional. You don't just want your character to be one way, because every person that I know is not always the same every day. So you need to be able to explain that personality so that when the reader is reading it, they know this character is like this. This is because they're consistently a certain way. Like, let's say you have a character that is kind of moody, and she's really rude. But sometimes with her close friends, she can be nice. Things like that. Like a person who's not the nicest person outside doesn't mean they're not nice to anybody. So, you got to kind of show different sides. I would say get the characters together, come up with an idea. Then you sit down when you have the time, because I know life is busy. I know a lot of people are parents, and you have to balance a lot of things. But I would recommend that they just sit down and try to get it done. If you know an author or anybody in the writing busy career, get somebody that you trust to read over your stuff. Sometimes you need an opinion from someone else. So don't be afraid at some point to let someone read it, because someone's going to read it if you want it out there. But if it's something that you really want to do, I say just sit down and start from scratch. Get you a piece of paper and a pen. Go back to the old school. I used to write on paper and pen. A lot of people are not comfortable, typing it up yet. So I would just say start somewhere. Don't keep asking, should I do this? I really want to do this. Like, just sit down and try to do it. And it's really probably not as easy as a lot of people think, but I don't think it's as hard as a lot of people think, if that's really something that you want to do. So all the future authors out there, get to it. New Year's coming. Your New Year resolution is to write a book. Get your book done in 2024. And I wish you all the blessings and luck in the world.
I love it. Now, you have a new release. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I have a new series. It will be a 3-part series. The name of it is A Hood Princess and a Royal Millionaire. And what made me want to be an author was fairy tales. I used to love fairy tales, so I used to have this big, thick book full of fairy tales. And it wasn't all princesses. And I used to love the Grimm fairy tales with, like, Rumpelstiltskin, the kind of scary ones.
Mm-hmm.
I like them. And so I kind of felt like, okay, I like the world of the sweet, princesses and Cinderellas and the Snow Whites, but then I like the Grimm fairy tales too. So what if I put these things together and write an urban fairy tale with all the villains and the ugliness of, real life, and kind of put a girl from the hood with a prince from another country? And the difference in those worlds, and I was thinking of Coming to America, but of course Coming to America is more of a comedy, and I'm not the type of person who steals anybody's ideas because the book is totally different. But it kind of has that vibe of two people balancing each other out. Two different, sometimes opposites do attract, and I think sometimes people who are different can, like, let's say she's high-strung and hot-headed, and he's calm and collected. So he could talk her off the cliff or, calm her down. And as far as him being calm, she could kind of, like, get him to come out of his shell a little bit, kind of get him to, broaden his horizons, go eat dinner in the hood off a food truck, things that a prince would never do. So I feel like those characters, I really like their dynamic. And their names are Kofi and Journey. And they have, like, this roller coaster ride, and it's a lot of secrets, and it's just, like I said, like a urban fairy tale, boy meets girl, they fall in love, but then you got, like, the wicked witch over here, you got, how fairy tales, you got people that's going to try to stop this beautiful love story, so it's a lot of obstacles. So I put out part 1 already, and part 2 dropped last month. The plan was to put part 3 out earlier this month, but I've had a tumultuous last 3 weeks. I lost a family member, and right before that, my friend Ebony's sister was murdered. So I went from August to October working on the part 2 with E-Money Pass. I was working on that part 2, so that kind of put me in a writing slump. And then when my uncle passed away, we were really close, and I'm probably like one of the people closest to him. So when he was going through his sickness, I was, helping him. And so kind of to watch the deterioration of somebody you love kind of took away from my creativity. But now that he's passed away and I've come to grips with it, I'm now, getting back into the groove. So I do apologize to all the readers who have gotten into this series. The plan was definitely to have the book out by October 7th, but I'm a little bit behind, but better late than never, because it's definitely coming. And I'm planning to have that out at least by the second week in November. Sometimes this week I will have a release date, so I will be posting that. But, yes, I really enjoyed writing this. It's just a lot of tragedy happening in the midst of this. I think any book that I've ever written, I haven't had so much happen in a short time span of just, like, a bunch of, like, tragedies. But I talk to God. I'm a very spiritual person, and I really feel calm, like, everything happens for a reason, and at the end of the day, things can only get better on the other side. So I'm just praying for opportunities, and like I said, I want to get into film, so seeing some of the things that I've written come to light in this particular series, I think is going to be very special because of the sweat and tears, and blood, sweat, and tears that I've put in it the last few months.
I love it. Well, we so appreciate you here at Hardcore Grind. I thank you for always rocking with me, sharing your time, and energy with me. Now I want you to shout out all of your social media so those that want to follow you and experience you are able to do so.
Okay, on Facebook, I'm Nika Michelle, just Nika Michelle. I also have an author page, Author Nika Michelle, on Facebook as well. That's where I mostly, with my events and things is going on, I make sure that's always on that page. So you can follow me at Author Nika Michelle on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm Author Nika Michelle. On TikTok, I'm Author Nika Michelle. I want to get more into the TikTok. I kind of want to get people to like read excerpts of my book and, kind of do a little series where people can get little snippets, maybe call it Snippet Sunday or Snippet Saturday or something like that. So I kind of want to engage more with the readers than I have been recently because, life be lifing. But that's definitely how you can always contact me. I'm working on my website, so I want to get more into getting the paperbacks out there and, like I said, get into screenplays and movies. So that's the big plan, the movies and the TV shows. But I do thank all the readers, and y'all follow me on social media.
I love it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sweetheart.
Purchase new wiper blades from O'Reilly Auto Parts today and we'll install them for free. See better and drive safer with O'Reilly Auto Parts.